Okay, friends and fellow crafters, once we left off last, I was in the process of putting on a coat of paint over this wooden accessories. This table, it has the burnt umber coat over it, and it still has some pretty nice texture from the black base coat. This circular table, kind of the same thing. I think for my next attempt with this, I would want to add more texture. I mean, you could get some of the wood grain in there, but I feel like I could have more, and that might add to it. But I'm going to go ahead and put it on the to be dry brushed pile. And then two different barrels. One is, this is actually a cast from Armor Cast, which I think it's supposed to have a, according to their directions, I was supposed to use a gray sandable primer before I even base coated it, which I didn't do. I just put a heavy coat of black on it, and then I put another heavy coat of burnt umber, and the paint doesn't really stick that well to it. So this might fall into the category of craft fails, but I'm going to still throw a dry brush coat over it and then try to do the banding with like a gray metallic kind of thing to give it that metal banding look. But we're going to try that one too. And last but not least is the wood barrels that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to dry brush those, and just as a side-by-side, the first time that I did these wood barrels, this is what I got. And I'm pretty happy with that. I never went back and painted the banding, which I probably should, but this was just burnt umber with a brown. So I'm going to kind of try the dry brushing on this to give it some texture, and then I'll go over the banding and see what that comes out as, see if it's much different from this one. Sorry about that, had a camera fail there. There were actually two more things. Number one was the clay pots, the little wooden pots. So in the last series of videos I had painted these to kind of get that terracotta look, and they totally exactly are what I wanted them to be. So I think they turned out really well. They actually look like a little mini terracotta pot, so that's going to look great in a marketplace. And then these are the little squares, the little wood squares. And I had tried kind of cutting in some texture lines, like as if there were boards, and then going back over them, and none of that really worked out well. So these kind of might be fails. I mean, I'm still going to use them, but I need to definitely figure out a way to make these wooden squares look better. So any input that anybody wants to share would be great. Really like what's going on with this table. I'm really glad I carved these grooves in, and I'm totally fine with the fact that this wood split. I don't know if you remember from the earlier video, this wood split and I had to glue it back into place. To me, it just makes it look more legit, you know, just like some beat up tavern table with holes in it, and it's just scratched up and it's got some cool texture to it. So pretty happy with that. I'm going to let that dry over here and move on to this round one. See how this works out with a little light coating of this dry brush. Just want to go around and hit those edges first, and then I'm just going really light across the top, kind of going against the grain of any of the marks that I made. I tried to beat this thing up a little bit and give it some additional texture. Maybe didn't do quite enough. I tried to shave off the disc, like the edges of the disc, to round it out a little more. Right now it kind of looks like, you know, part of a felled tree trunk, I guess. That's cool. I'll take that. Part of what I'm learning in these projects is just to like go with the flow, you know. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's got to be playable. Like kind of like Scotty says, you know, I'm not making this to win an award for a diorama. I'm making it to add a little more of an experience to the table, but that looks pretty darn good. I'm going to put that on the drying side too. Okay, barrels. Again, just going to try to, hit that. Just barely kind of flicking this. And what I'm getting here is the banding, because it's got the kind of the highest elevation, is getting the most paint. So I want to go around the middle and get the kind of middle of the barrel, get some of this light dry brush paint in the middle of the barrel too. And then I can go back around and darken up the banding. So basically all my edges are light, which when this dries up, it'll dry up a little lighter. And then I'll have to try that experiment with putting some metal kind of gray on the banding. But it's interesting because this is the one I just did. And then this is one that I did, months ago. And they look pretty similar, but two totally different techniques. The one that I just did got a black base coat and then a burnt umber coat, and now this beige brown dry brush. This never got a black base coat. It was just burnt umber and then brown. So, but they kind of look similar. So we'll see kind of how that works out. Alright, and now for this is the armor cast barrel. So again, should have been primed with, according to their directions, they say to prime it with a Krylon sandable spray primer, which I didn't do. I just used black acrylic and bombed it. So I have more of these, so if this is a total train wreck, I'll just go back to the drawing board. But I'm just going to hit this with the same kind of dry brush technique that I just did these other ones with. I will say that this molded barrel has so much more detail than I have with the wooden ones, but then again it costs more money probably to begin with. So I guess if I got into molding, like if I bought the Hearst Arts molds and started doing these, you get your money's worth, certainly. So that's pretty dope, actually. I'm not going to lie. I think that looks legit. And as long as the paint kind of stays on and it doesn't crackle off, maybe I'll put a sealer over this, like a flat Mod Podge or something. But that looks pretty cool. It's got a lot of texture. And, just for a side-by-side, here's the one I just did. I mean, obviously the barrel's bigger and it has more details, but, looking at the top, that kind of stuff. That looks pretty good. So, alright, last but not least, these fails. I don't know if doing a dry brush on this is going to have any impact, but I'll try. And again, if anybody has any kind of solutions for adding more detail to this stuff, I've looked at videos where people kind of made their own out of cardboard or, different things like, yeah, this doesn't really do very much. I mean, I guess it's fine to just kind of add terrain to the table, but it definitely doesn't, it lacks a lot of the details that I would like to have. And then the smaller one, first of all, is a pain to paint because it is so small. There's really no good way to hold it, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weak. This might fall into the category of just fail. Like I said, I mean, I'll still use it, whatever, but I have a whole bunch more of these, and if anybody's got any ideas or techniques for how to add, some quality details here, send the info my way, because I'd like to really make these a lot cooler. So, That's it, friends. Wooden accessories.